Welcome to Unleash the Awesome with Dave Gambrill. All of us have unique skills, talents, and abilities that aren't being used to their full potential. Our mission is to share the people, tools, apps, and other resources that will help you unleash your awesome on the world.
Yo, what's up? It's Dave. Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Awesome. Today, let's figure out if you know your worth. Do you know your worth? And I'm not asking that in a spiritual or metaphysical sense. I'm asking that more in a freelancer way or an hourly rate way. Like, do you know how to calculate that? Because what's happening is many of the people that I run into that are building a side hustle, maybe they're still working full time and they're trying to build a side hustle. They're building their side hustle or their business with an employee mindset, and it just will not work for a number of reasons that we'll get into in this episode. So you need a little bit of a mindset shift here as it relates to what is your time worth? Do you understand what that hourly rate is? Do you know what an hour of your time is worth? Because you will never build $1 million empire with a minimum wage mindset, period. So how do you figure this out? Well, if you just go Google something like how to calculate freelance rate, you'll get a lot of results. And there's lots of calculators on there. And it will give you a pretty good idea when you fill them out what you could be charging as a freelancer. And even if you are selling a tangible product, you're in e-commerce or something, it's helpful to still go through this exercise, even if you're not doing service-based stuff, because it gives you an idea of the amount of value in monetary terms, the amount of value that you bring to the hour. And this is important for a couple of reasons. One, if you do have a service-based business or a consultancy or something like that, or an agency, then you have to know what to charge per hour. And it's not just how much you want to make per year divided by 52 weeks or divided by 52 divided by 40 hours in the week. Like that, it does not work that way because you have expenses and taxes and other things that you need to invest in. So go look at one of those calculators and just go through the exercise. So that's the first reason. You have to understand what to charge or why you would charge something and kind of what the prevailing rate for your services might be. Okay, that's just a good place to get started. By the way, this is just a baseline. There are exercises I would do with you that would teach you how to think a little bit bigger and how to charge a hell of a lot more, actually. But this, you got to get started somewhere. Okay, so this will give you a good baseline. So the first one is obviously knowing what to charge. But the second thing, and this is probably more important, and this is why I jumped into this episode today, was you have to understand what an hour of your time is worth, especially on the side hustle side, right? So, and even if you want to keep it super simple and you don't want to go through all these exercises, then if you're still working full time, then just simply look at what you're getting paid per hour. Break it down by hour. That'll give you some idea. Okay. But you need to have a number. You need to have a dollar figure or whatever your local currency is, currency per hour. And here's why. Once you know this number, or until you know this number, it's very difficult to make decisions on what you should outsource or what software or systems you should invest in or whatever, right? So let's say, well, I'll give you an example from my situation. So about, 8 or 9 years ago when I really started going gangbusters with my side hustle, I'd been doing all kinds of side things and having multiple streams of income for a really long time. But probably 8 or 9 years ago when I started to go, okay, it's time to go actually do something with this and be serious about it. And some of you know what I'm talking about, right? You're dabbling. And I said, all right, it's time to stop dabbling. Dabbling is not on the path to mastery. It's time to get busy here. So once I started getting serious, and I read the book, actually, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which I highly, highly recommend. It's an incredible book that will help you understand this mindset more fully. But as I was reading that book, he got into some of these exercises and said, okay, I understand what this number is for you. So once I calculated this number, I was working full time, building my side hustle, right? So I'm working in a corporate environment, working about 40 hours a week, roughly, give or take. I mean, I had a sales job and I worked from home mostly. So I had some flexibility, but still essentially a 40-hour work week. And then my kids were young and still involved in sports and marching band and Boy Scouts and all these other things. And I was coaching and officiating lacrosse. So I had like a million things going on. and my side hustle. So once I understood this number, then it was easy for me to make a decision like this. When we moved into this current house that we live in, one of the things I looked at, there's a little over 2 acres of land, and most of it is mowable, meaning I have to mow it. It's not like it's woods or something. It's grass. And I was like, man, that would take a long time to mow. And when I look at some of my neighbors who do it themselves, it takes them about 2 hours with a similar sized property. By the time, when you ride on a residential riding mower, they go slower than a commercial mower. And by the time you finish doing the weed whacking and the hand mowing and everything else, it takes upwards of 2 hours, right? And by the time you rinse off your lawnmower and put it away, or maybe you have to go get gas and put it in it, 2 hours roughly. And that's every week from spring to early fall. So that's 2 hours. So I had a landscaping company approach me and say, hey, we'll do your yard each week for $50. And because I figured out what my hourly worth or value was, that $50 came under that hourly worth. And so I looked at that and I went, wait a minute, 2 hours of my time would cost X, and they're going to come in and do it for less than half of that? Hell yeah, that's an easy decision to make. And I was like, yes, sure, please come mow my lawn every week for $50. It was a no-brainer. But before I had gone through that exercise, I would look at that and I'd be like, oh, $50, I don't know. I could do a lot with $50. But what it came down to is this. If I had to go out and mow the lawn in the middle of the summer in the heat, right, it would take 2 hours plus some other things, right? There's probably an hour of cool down time, showering off, whatever, so maybe it takes 3 hours all in. And then I'm worn out or tired or, being out in the sun for a long time, I'm just not with it. I'm not creative. And so even though I have some time, maybe on the weekends to work on my side hustle, I just don't want to anymore because I'm worn down, right? So this could drag on for 4 hours, 5 hours all told. And these guys are going to come and do it for $50. Yeah, that's easy. Yes, please come mow my lawn. I'll give you $50. I can't wait to give you $50 to mow my lawn, because instead of me spending 2 hours doing it, that was 2 hours I could put into my business. And even though I wasn't immediately making that hourly rate, I knew that I was going to have to build out a foundation in my business and invest in some tools and whatever. And so I said, yes, come do this. That will give me 2 hours, free up 2 more hours in my week where I can do this, that, or whatever. Or spend time with my family, or spend time grilling so I can cook dinner for the family or whatever. Because like I said, I was still running around like crazy. And so just freed up some time. And then it allowed me to look at other things. And I didn't go in on all of these things, but could you then pay for a laundry service, drop off your laundry and have that done for you? Could you then pay for grocery shopping? So this is one of those things that I don't do because I work from home and I like to get out of the house, and grocery shopping is kind of a little bit of therapy for me. I can get out and be in the community and see some human beings. But for a lot of you, you don't like to do that. You don't want to do that. And you look at the $10 fee they might charge you for delivering groceries to your house, and you're like, I don't want to pay that. But man, if that saves you 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour of your day, and that's an hour that you can invest in your business, then that $10 is certainly worth it. And if you pretty much order the same stuff every week, a lot of these grocery store websites allow you to set up shopping carts, and then you can just copy it week to week. So if you're pretty much getting the same thing every week, you don't even have to create a new list. You can pretty much just duplicate 80% of your order each week, and then go in and add the 1 or 2 other things that you want, and then submit it to the grocery store, and they bring it to your house. So, I could be having my groceries show up while people are mowing the lawn, and then my laundry people show up, because near us, we also have people that will deliver your laundry. You can leave a bag on your porch, and they'll come and get it, and they'll bring it back nicely folded and everything. So I know when you first get started and you have an employee mindset, you look at that stuff as a cost. People say things like, that's expensive. That's a luxury that I wouldn't pay for. And I'm going to ask you to flip the script on that and say, if you invest, right, that's a different word, invest, instead of pay or expense. If you invest in that service or that thing or that software, what impact will it have on your business? Will it free you up to do some other things? Okay, the same thing holds true for some of these software services I talk about. People will say, I don't want to pay $100 or $150 a month. That's too expensive. Well, yes, there's a little bit of learning curve initially, so it'll take you a few hours to invest to learn how to use these things. But once you get them up and running, they save you so much time from doing repetitive tasks. You can automate a lot of stuff. People can come into your email list and get access to stuff. I mean, I was on vacation last week and my business actually grew by a lot, and I really wasn't doing anything because I have all these automations in place. And so every time someone comes to me and just says, that's expensive, or I don't want to pay that, right? I will say to them, well, what is an hour of your time worth? And most of the time, people will go, I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never calculated that before. So do it, because then it'll make these decisions so much easier, right? There are just situations now where I'll pay for stuff and outsource stuff. There are, if you want to get virtual assistants and stuff like that, there are services like Fiverr where people will, and I'll make sure these are in the show notes for you. Fiverr, you can outsource stuff where people can do some basic graphic design, or maybe they can do a voiceover for a video for you. The actual intro to this podcast, the intro and the outro, was done by a guy on Fiverr. I got the music from a service called Pond5, P-O-N-D, the number 5. And so it's podcast safe music, right? I own the rights to it now or whatever, licensed it. And then I gave it to a guy on Fiverr and said, hey, here's the voiceover that I want. Here's what I want you to say. Do the voiceover and edit an intro and an outro for me. And he did. And it cost me like, I don't know, $20 all told. He did in like 3 or 4 days. So I got it back in 3 or 4 days time. So I could have spent time doing that. I'm capable of doing that. You know how long that would have taken me? It would have taken me 3 or 4 days almost nonstop. I would have been like trying to edit it and get it just right and get the volume right and everything else. But instead I paid $20, emailed it, sent it to this guy on Fiverr. A few days later, we had a little bit of back and forth. Okay, what do you want? How about this? Okay, cool. And then a few days later, he delivered it and rocked it. The cover for the image, the cover for this podcast was done by a guy on Fiverr. Same deal. I probably could have done it in Canva or PicMonkey or something. It would have taken me an hour or two of time. I just sent this guy, pay him $20 or whatever it was. He delivered a couple options, and the one that you see now is the one I picked. So there's lots of things you can do on Fiverr. There's also services where you can get virtual assistants. There's one in the US that's a little bit more of an investment. And so if you're not if your business isn't running along yet and you're not generating some revenue, this is probably not a good choice for you. But if you have a business running and you have some revenue and you're looking for a solid option, Belay is a good VA solution. But if you're just getting started and you want to outsource some stuff, here's another great recommendation for you. There is a service called onlinejobs.ph, and I'll put a link there in the comments for you. I have an affiliate link. I forget what it gets you. It may get you a reduced rate or a coupon or something. But essentially what it is you can get virtual assistants from the Philippines. And many of them speak English very well. And so there's not any kind of language barrier. And the beautiful thing about that is they will do some of these routine tasks that you would otherwise do for a few dollars an hour. So it's not expensive to invest in this service. And what I love most about it is I'm on the East Coast of the United States. These folks are pretty much on the other side of the world. And so while I'm getting ready to go to bed, I can send off some jobs or some tasks to them and say, hey, here's what I need some help with, or go take a peek at this. And then when I wake up in the morning and I do my morning routine and then I finally log onto the computer, I have a lot of completed tasks waiting for me in my inbox or on Trello or however we set up our communication, which is freaking awesome. So essentially, there's somebody working in my business 24/7. I'm sleeping, and I got people on the other side of the world working on my business for me, working in my business, right? And some people would, again, look at the rate that you have to pay for that and be like, well, that's not worth it. Yes, it is. If you're running a business, that is an easy investment to make. Now, there's all kinds of things you got to do before you outsource, and you got to learn how to do this stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I love Tim Ferriss's book. He talked about it. I can't remember what chapter it is in the 4-Hour Work Week, but he talked about how to learn how to outsource more effectively. And so you want to do low risk tasks, low cost, low risk tasks initially, because honestly, you will have a hard time outsourcing, because if you've never outsourced before, it's very much like that exercise that I'm sure you all did in elementary school where your teacher said, write instructions on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And you wrote like 5 sentences, like get the peanut butter and jelly, get the bread, put the jelly and the peanut butter on the bread, eat it, right? Something like that. And then your teacher or another classmate had to follow your instructions to a T. And what you quickly figured out was you forgot a heck of a lot of stuff. Like you need to open the jar. You need to get a knife. You need to get a specific kind of knife, not a huge 9-inch carving knife or something. No, you need like a butter knife or a regular table knife, and you can then put it in the peanut butter. You need to open the jar and then put it in the peanut butter, and then get about, I don't know, a tablespoon and spread it evenly on one slice of bread. And that, right? So there's all these steps, right? You initially wrote 5 or 6 steps, but when you break down making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, there's probably like 30 steps if you need to map it all out. So that is why you practice outsourcing some of these things, because some people that I've dealt with are like, okay, fine, I'm going to outsource something. And they outsource like a mission critical task right off the bat. And I'm like, oh, bad idea. You're not going to get the results you're looking for, right? But if you check out my friends over there, onlinejobs.ph, again, I'll put the link in the show notes for you. They have some instructions about how you should do that and some guidance, and there's a video there that will help you out with that. So anyway, I'm telling you all of this. We're talking about all this to help you understand that your time is more valuable often than what you are giving yourself credit for. So instead of doing all of these menial tasks that could either be outsourced to somebody else, or we didn't even talk about this, you could automate. There are systems and services, like there's one of my favorites is called If This Then That, IFTTT. Again, I'll put the links in the show notes for you. You can automate some things that you're doing. If you're using Trello, like I love Trello, I use it a lot. There are some automations inside Trello that you can do. There's something called Butler. It's a feature inside Trello that it will say, hey, we see that you do this task on a pretty consistent basis. We can set up an automation for you so that when you complete this task, if it's something that you need to do again, we can set up the checklist or the card or whatever for you, and you don't have to spend time making it again. We'll just do it automatically. I'm like, yeah, that's great, right? So again, you can start doing all these automations, but here's the deal. Before you do any of this stuff, you got to know your hourly rate, and then you got to eliminate before you delegate or automate, right? So there's a lot of stuff you shouldn't be doing anyway. Look at the Pareto principle, the old 80-20, right? There's probably stuff that you're doing that's not moving the needle on your side hustle, right? Do you need to be spending all this time making a logo or making a business card or whatever? No, you do not. Making a website? No, you do not. You could outsource those things to other people, Fiverr, whatever, right? But then there's some of those things that you shouldn't even be doing. So instead of outsourcing them, eliminate first before you delegate or automate, okay? But anyway, once you know your number, once you know your hourly worth, if you will, then making these decisions is so much easier. It just becomes a no-brainer. And sometimes when people see me make these decisions now, they're like, well, like, why would you do that? Like, even when we go on vacation or do some other things, like sometimes my wife would be like, why? Like, why would you pay a premium for that? I'm like, what is an hour of our time worth? Right? If you think about, I don't know if Disney World is still doing this, but we haven't been as a family a long time, but I used to travel to Orlando a fair amount, and they had this thing called Disney's Magical Express. So when you flew into the airport at Orlando, they basically would take your luggage. You didn't have to wait for your luggage. You could just, and this is if you were staying in a Disney property, you could just, you needed to write a specific thing on your luggage tag. They gave you a special luggage tag or a sticker or something. And you just, when you got to Orlando, you didn't even wait for your luggage. You just got on the bus that they had, Disney's Magical Express, and they just took you right to your hotel and you got checked in and everything. It's like an express thing. And you could go right to the parks. Like basically within an hour, you could be inside one of the parks at the Magic Kingdom or Epcot or whatever. But if you didn't do that, if you weren't staying on a property and didn't like pay the premium for that, then you'd have to wait for your luggage, and then you'd have to get a taxi or an Uber, and then you'd have to get your hotel, right? And this could take a few hours. And when you're spending all that money on a vacation at Disney World, you want to be on the property or either in the pool at the hotel or actually in one of the theme parks, right? You don't want to be wasting time hanging out at the luggage thing, waiting for your luggage to come down. So like that was something that was worth it to me. I was like, yeah, I would much rather stay on property. It's closer to get to, we can get on the monorail and go back and take a nap in the middle of the day or whatever. Yes, I will pay the premium to stay on a Disney property because my time, I know what my time is worth, right? And our time is more valuable than the $20 or $30 a night that I would save staying at a hotel outside the park. Because by the time you drive into the park, I didn't even take that into consideration. If you're staying there for like 4 or 5 days, then you have to drive into the park and you have to go into the parking and then you have to get the shuttle to get to the park and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, if you just stay at one of the Disney properties, you jump on the monorail, right? If you stay on one of the main ones that served by the monorail, within like 5 minutes, you're in the park. It's awesome. And again, if you want to go back and take a nap in the middle of the day, that's great. If you were staying off property, it's like an hour and a half. But by the time you get to your car, and then you get to the hotel, and then you get settled and whatever, and then you're like, ugh, and then you don't want to come back. All right. So like all of those things, like if you understand what an hour of your time worth, or what your time is worth in general, then making those decisions is so much easier, because the one resource that none of us can get back is time. That's the one non-renewable resource. Money, we can make more, we can get more, we can attract more, we can create more value and get more money, but we cannot get our time back. And so when you start treating it like the non-renewable resource that it is, and you understand what the value is, then I think you will make much different decisions as it relates to the things that you will invest in, or the things that you will outsource, or the things that you will delegate, or the things that you will automate. Okay. All right. Hope that served you. Go do the calculation. Go figure out what your time is worth, so that between now and our next episode, you can go unleash your awesome at an even higher level, because you stop doing these menial tasks that you shouldn't be doing anyway. All right. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Unleash the Awesome. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share us on your favorite social media platforms using #UnleashAwesome.